For the rock candy experiment, we followed a very specific procedure in order to obtain our result. The materials needed for this experiment include saran wrap, 2 measuring cups, approximately 1 cup each, some distilled water, several mason jars used for holding the solution, cane sugar, as well as Splenda, and bamboo skewer. Additional materials included a scale so we could measure the mass of different specimens, the rubber spatula used for stirring the solution, and the pot used to boil. The procedure for this experiment begins with us taking the different masses of the different items involved, in particular the bamboo skewers as well as the glass mason jars. We obtained their weight using a scale, and we measured the weight, or mass, in grams. The masses of the measuring cups were also recorded. The masses of the measuring cups filled with either water or sugar or Splenda were also recorded. In order to make sure that no contaminants got into the solution, we went ahead and washed out each mason jar with soap and hot water. The bamboo skewers were then prepared by getting them wet and then rolling them in either sugar or Splenda. The purpose of this was to create some points along the bamboo skewers at which the crystals would begin their growth. It should be noted that in this experiment, the ratio used for the solution is 1 part deionized water and 3 parts either sugar or Splenda. The next part of the experiment involved creating the sugary solutions. The first solution was the classic cane sugar and water solution. 2 cups of deionized water were measured and then added into an empty pot. The pot was then placed on an electric stove and heated on medium heat. Once the deionized water began to heat up, each cup of sugar was added one after the other. Once a cup of sugar was added, it was stirred until the sugar had fully dissolved into the solution. It can be seen here that the first cup of sugar dissolved pretty easily in the deionized water. Once the first cup of sugar had dissolved, the second cup of sugar was added in. This process was repeated until all 6 cups of sugar had been added to the solution. With the addition of each cup of sugar, the sugar began to take longer and longer to dissolve into solution. By the addition of the 6th cup, the sugar was sitting on top of the solution and having a hard time dissolving into it. The sugar-water solution was then heated until it came to a boil. While waiting for the solution to reach a boiling temperature, the glass mason jars that were going to be filled with solution were prepared by heating them up under running hot water. This process was done to ensure that upon pouring in the heated sugar solution, that the mason jars would not shatter or crack due to thermal stress. The sugar solution was allowed to cool for 30 minutes at room temperature before being transferred into the mason jars. Once the solution had cooled, an equal amount of the solution was then poured into each mason jar. The bamboo skewers which had been prepared were lowered into the jars, and then saran wrap was placed over top. The bamboo skewers were affixed in their position using some tape. The same process was then repeated using Splenda instead of sugar. The Splenda was also added cup by cup. As the amount of Splenda being dissolved into the mixture increased, it began to take longer and longer for the Splenda to fully dissolve into solution. Just like with the sugar solution formation, once all 6 cups of the Splenda had been added into solution, it was raised to a boil and then it was set aside to let cool for 30 minutes. Once the Splenda solution had been allowed to cool, an equal amount of the solution was poured into 2 separate mason jars. These mason jars had also been heated to ensure that they did not crack or break whenever the warm liquid was poured into them. The bamboo skewers, which had been rolled in the Splenda mixture, were then lowered into each respective mason jar. Saran wrap was then placed over the top, and the bamboo skewers were held in place using some tape. 1 mason jar containing the sugar solution and 1 mason jar containing the Splenda solution were placed in the fridge. 1 mason jar of sugar solution and 1 mason jar of Splenda solution were also left outside of the fridge to sit at room temperature for the duration of the experiment. Photos were taken once per day of each set of jars. This would later be used in order to compare crystal growth or see if any unexpected developments had formed within the solutions.